Yo, what's going on today, guys? In today's video, I basically want to discuss mini sets and why I think mini sets always low-key kind of ruin Pokemon Pocket, and we usually have the full sets such as Space Time, Celestial Guardians, and even Wisdom of Sea and Sky be some pretty good, personally in my opinion, formats of Pokemon Pocket. So throughout the lifespan of Pokemon Pocket, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mini sets. We have had Mythical Island, Light, Shining, E-Crisis, Eevee's Grove, and then Secluded Spring. So actually, I think that's low-key 6, so my bad. However, there is one common theme that 5 of these things have. There is one mini set that doesn't really have it, which is going to be Mythical Island. I kind of had it for a little bit at the beginning, but I don't think it's the dominance of these other decks. But one common theme for these mini sets is that these mini sets always bring a super dominated deck. We've seen in Triumphant Light, we had Dolga Arceus. Shining, we had Darkrai Giratina. ED Crisis, we had Buzz. Eevee's Grove, we had the Sylveon Greninja. And then even in Secluded Springs right now, we have the dominance of the suicune Greninja. So now that we're on Limitless, we can basically look at the stats. So this is Mythical Island, where no Mythical Island deck really had the highest percentage. It was just Mewtwo at the end of the day. Although Gyarados was pretty close, and then you obviously have the Celebi versions down here at around 10% when you do combine them. And so Mythical Island was like the only mini set where you really didn't have super dominance from your deck. Gyarados was at the beginning. However, it didn't fall off, but it just became less played as more people went back to Mewtwo. We could take a look at Space Time, for example. Celebi at the end of the day ended up having the most usage rate at 12%. However, stuff like Dark Zone, Charizard was very close behind, even with like Darkrai Greninja being at the 5%, plus like stuff like Gyarados, Magnezone, Skarmory, etc. So this was a full set compared to a mini set, and it had a very balanced meta. But then we take a look at something like Triumphant Light, where you can see Dolga Arceus is at 20%. The second thing is 10%, half of it. We go into Shining Reverie, the exact same thing. We have a 20% and then a 10%, with Darktina being the most dominated deck. We can go to Celestial Guardians, where once again, this is a full set. We have a balanced meta. The highest deck is going to be Darktina at 12%. And then, obviously, Limitless data is not 100% accurate. It doesn't really include ranked because this is only tournaments. However, for people who played ranked or just played the game back then, you would know this information is for the most part accurate. Darktina was 100% the most accurate deck. Obviously, like Triumphant Light, there was no tournament date, or like there was no ranked, but if you play tournaments, dude, you know how good Dolga Arceus was. Plus, obviously all the seasons before Triumphant Light as well that didn't have ranked. We can then go into ED Crisis, where Buzzwole ended up having a 17% usage rate because you have to combine the 2 different Buzzwole variants, making it 17. Although, Savali Rampardos did have 11. So ED Crisis was like overall probably like the mini set besides Mythical Island that had the least dominance, because there was a bunch of ways. Like there's a bunch of Savali decks, there's even Guzzlord, Darktina, and like the Solgaleo decks. However, it is very clear Buzzwole was over 15%. We can go into Eevee's Grove, where we see Sylveon Greninja at that 15%, and the second highest deck being 8% Darktina. We can go to Wisdom of the Sea and Sky, where sure, Darktina was at 12%, Espeon was at 8%, everything was around the same percentage, at least in like the top 3. And then we can go into Secluded Springs, where once again, we're almost at a 20% dominated meta, with Suicune being at 18.76%. So in my personal opinion, every time a mini set is coming out, I just know there's going to be some new card, some new cards maybe, that basically make either a previous card or just new cards in general that is going to be the most dominated deck probably in the game, because it's just a common pattern. It's happened every single one after Mythical Island. So every time we're like, for example, Wisdom of Sea and Sky, one of my all-time favorite metas, if not my favorite meta in the game. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think Secluded Springs is too bad. Usually I don't really like mini sets. I don't actually mind ED Crisis now after Eevee's Grove. Eevee's Grove, worst pocket ever for me, bro, because it was literally just Sylveon slop with either Greninja or the Charizards. So like I see a mini set, bro, and I'm like, I don't really get excited. Like sure, it's fun for like the first 1 or 2 weeks, and then everybody just plays the one deck that's gonna dominate the format. And yeah, it's like, why is that, bro? Why is that? Because if we look at the mini sets, dude, so obviously we're not gonna talk about Mythical Island. Like I said, that is the only exception from the 6. We go to Triumphant Light, bro. Let's look at Triumphant Light, bro. Like, what did Triumphant Light brought us? Leafeon, a pretty good card. Brought us stuff like Glaceon, which is not played, Origin Palkia. But the main thing is that there's just always one broken card. Also, like low-key, some of them give broken supporters, like we got Aerida from this one. But the main thing is we got Arceus. Arceus is just a generic card that is so strong, you know, comboing that with the Olga, which was actually pretty mid back in space time. Didn't really have a good partner. Arceus, it always prints like a very meta staple card, because we got Arceus in this one. You know, we did get some other good cards like Garchomp, you know, for Candy got better, Leafeon with the addition of you know, all the Eevee stuff like Flareon EX ended up becoming better over time. But the main one, just how strong Arceus was at the time, and still is, because Arceus is still seeing play. Then obviously, you know, Shining brought us a lot of curse things. Like it gave us Charizard, it gave us the Pikachu, which, you know, Pikachu's only gotten better overall, mainly because like electrical cord and stuff. But Charizard, you know, got buffed for Candy. But the main thing is it gave us Giratina, arguably the best card ever created in the Pokemon Pocket as it ramps itself up. So these mini sets always tend to give us some very strong stuff that's going to shape up the meta in a very cursed way. Because I feel like we'll follow Giratina, bro. So I don't think Suicune Greninja, I think Suicune Greninja is still strong. I think Giratina is like that camel that breaks the back. So I think like if Giratina didn't exist, bro, like I don't know what the meta would be looking like, because I feel like we would have more decks because Giratina wouldn't exist. So low-key Espeon could still be played. And all of these decks that get like super buffed by Giratina, I don't think would be as strong, such as like Simon Shinobi, aka Oreo or Koryo Greninja, Suicune Greninja, and then even back in the day stuff like Tapu Lele, Giratina Greninja. And then yeah, so it's like I think Giratina, arguably besides Greninja, the best card in the game ever created. That's the topic for another video. And then we move on to ED Crisis. I mean, the thing about ED Crisis is that Buzzwole and like Pheromosa, you with the Celebar, you just had it all. And like yeah, we got some other good cards like Zeraora, Bro, Tapu Koko, but like the other cards in these mini sets are usually cards that are cool. They're gonna be good. But yeah, this is why I think like ED Crisis is the other one, because you know we did get some good stuff. Like even Guzz is really strong. But the reason that it's so good is because, you know, for most of the bench damage, Lucamine for the Buzzwole, bro. The swap power to be able to tank his Celebar, you just have it all, bro. You just have it all. So that's like another example. Like we got Buzzwole, we got a couple alright stuff. Like I think ED Crisis was the mini set that gave us like the most viable stuff. Because obviously, you know, Shiny, you could say like it gave us Charizard, but Charizard really only got good after our Candy. And then we move on to Eevee's Grove, where Sylveon is just so strong. It breaks the deck because it's also arguably one of the best cards in the game as well. However, you know, with the dogs, you don't really need to play it in like decks that can't play one of the dogs at this point. And then in Secluded Springs, we got Suicune, bro. We already know Suicune's like the only meta relevant EX Pokemon. Second one is Raikou, because it is an electric type. I still don't think Raikou's that good, but people are playing it. But we know how super strong Suicune is because of Greninja, because of Giratina, because of Irida, because of every goddamn water support plus Cyrus, dude. So like, I don't know. It's just like, these mini sets always give us like one super strong card and a couple cards that are like pretty good that are gonna see play. Because for example, bro, let's just go to Celestial Guardians, because we saw so many meta relevant cards come out of this pack. If we just scroll down to the EX Pokemon, we saw Solgaleo get play, we saw Incineroar get play, we saw Decidueye get play. So the full sets give us way more stuff, essentially, because you know it's 2 packs. So we actually see more meta development. So there's more decks to come out of these sets than just nothing. Because if there's like, okay, if we get like 2, 3, 4 decks from a mini set or like a full set, which is like usually at least we get 2 for the most part, we have decks that kind of like counter each other. We're like these mini sets, we only really get 1 deck for the most part, and nothing really ever competes. Like sure, like lately the Raikous are stepping up to beat the Suicune, but the Suicune still beat them. The Suicune Greninjas will still beat the Raikous unless the Suicune players get bad hands and do not get the Greninjas. That is the real only way that the lightning types either or they can go like first with Zeraora or like an elemental switch and get the first hit. But for the most part, I feel like just Suicune just dominates that pack. Like yeah, there's Raikou is there. I don't think Raikou is anywhere close to Suicune, bro. Because like sure, in ranked, I think Raikou is pretty strong because there's so many Suicunes. But even in these best of 3 formats, these electric decks tend to brick more often than the Suicune decks. And the Suicunes actually just beat them overall. Because we see tournaments. We see tournaments. I just made a video, bro. Every tournament this season, or every tournament this set has just been dominated by Suicune. We're like, yeah, like I said, bro, we got a couple good cards in this one. We even got like stuff like I think was Masquerada from this pack. I can't remember. I don't think it was. I think that was a previous one. Oh no, that was just Shining. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but we just got a couple good decks. We got this is where Incineroar, bro, Solgaleo. We can even look at Space Time, bro. We just got a bunch of good cards in Space Time. We got Infernape, which I actually did see a little bit of play. I'm not going to say it was anything crazy. We saw Palkia, which was pretty good because, you know, Manaphy. We had Magnezone, which is just the go, one of the best cards ever created. We saw Pachirisu that had play. We saw Lucario. Gallade, which had a little bit of play, definitely got buffed later on with the addition of red and like the following formats. We had Weavile, which definitely saw play of Darkrai. We got Darkrai itself. Like in these full sets, we just get good decks, dude. We get way more decks and we just get way more good cards. So something that might be broken or overtuned is already going to have like a counter deck to be able to beat it. Obviously, you know, there's some exceptions. Like sometimes there's like, for example, Magnezone came out. Magnezone was super broken. Yeah, obviously, you know, eventually because Darkrai Magnezone was so good, people started playing Egg Celebi to be able to counter, and then that deck popped off because, you know, countered the best deck, which happens. But like, there's no deck that counters. There's no deck that counters Suicune. The only time, like, yeah, sure, Giratina does good into it, Flareon does good into it, Guz does good into it, but at the end of the day, Suicune has the tools and it has the power to be able to beat every single one of these decks, dude. So just going back and like looking at this, for example, I've already said this, bro. My favorite seasons of Pokemon Pocket are going to be Wisdom Sea with the Sky, Celestial Guardians, and Space Time. Every single full set I always tend to really love, and I just have a lot of fun playing the game. My least favorite season is Eevee's Grove, Shining Revelry to an extent. I really like the Mythical Island, but like I said, Mythical Island is the 1 out of 6. It is the exception because we only got Celebi, we got Gyarados, and both of those decks were not the top and did not dominate the meta. It was like basically like a 5. Obviously it's not a triangle, bro, because there's 5 decks, but you guys know what I mean, bro. It was kind of like a circle, bro. Like every deck like beat a certain deck in the top thing. Like Pikachu would beat Gyarados because he had Substrika, even though it wasn't guaranteed, and then, you know, stuff like that. So I just feel like, I don't know, man, like basically the point is I think mini sets are garbage. I think the full sets are always lives up to the expectations. I know Wisdom of the Sea and Sky was a little bit different. This was like the first time we had a full set that didn't really do too much. However, it did give us Espeon, and it basically balanced out, because like Espeon being introduced to the meta essentially balanced out stuff like Sylveon Gren, because, you know, got rid of it. And with Sylveon Gren gone, a lot of decks just came back. Like we had Guz come back, we had one of the most balanced metas, bro. Like sure, Dartina was the top deck, but I think this deck, the way you just balanced the meta, bro, and basically you removed the Sylveon stuff from being at the top of the top, I think it really helped the game. Because, you know, we did get some decks, like we got Crobat, was a nice mid-tier to low-tier deck, and we also got Donphan, which, you know, saw play. But for the main part, this deck really was only Espeon. We got Ho-Oh, which, you know, was utilized in some decks. Like it was utilized in like Arceus, Heatran, utilized in the Darkrai, Snorlax deck, stuff like that. So out of all the full sets, I will say this is probably one of the ones that had the least amount of like meta decks that came from it. However, I still think because the way it balanced the meta, I still really like this. Because a lot of these decks are not that atrocious, bro. Like when there is a balanced format, for example, I really hated playing against Buzzwole in ED Crisis because it was just, you know, it was the #1 deck. It was the #1 most played deck, and it was really strong. And Wisdom of Sea and Sky, I did not mind playing against the deck, bro. If I lost the deck, I was like, yeah, sure, man, because it was balanced. We had a nice balanced format where like every deck had a couple counter decks, and like if you ran into them, yeah, it's gonna be a tough time. You can still beat them at the end of the day. Because, like, for example, I made Espeon. Espeon lost to Guz and Darktina, which was, like, 2 pretty meta-relevant decks. However, it was still possible to beat them. Anyways, I think that does it, dude. I think that's enough yapping. I basically just wanted to get my mind across and, you know, just talk about how I think mini sets are some of the lowest points in Pokemon Pocket. We have another mini set coming out in, like, 2 weeks. I really hope it could break the chain and basically escape what I think is a very common theme from these mini sets. Hopefully, you can join in the ranks of Mythical Island. Let me know if you guys agree in the comments. Peace out and have a lovely day as always.